Hi, and welcome to MindShifters Radio. I hope that I'm coming through okay.
You are indeed.
To the show, Michael and I. Awesome. Good. Well, we found a quiet corner, and hopefully we have come around to what's going on here, that maybe we can stay connected. So I hope it stays a clear signal. So we welcome everyone to the show. This is MindShifters Radio with Dr. Michael Ryce, and I'm your co-host, Jeanie Ryce, and we also have Dr. Tim Hay, and who we are most appreciative that you just pick up and carry the wand when we drop it. Our call-in number is 646-200-4169. Press 1, and that puts you in queue to talk to us, and we would love to hear your comments and your questions, because then that makes this your show. And I'm going to turn it over to Michael, and we do already have a caller. I think it might be Terry.
Awesome. Well, we're delighted and honored that you're with us today. Thank you, Dr. Tim, for all of your support. We're actually sitting in a lounge at the Sheraton Hotel, and or not a lounge, not a bar, but the private lounge. We met a gentleman yesterday who was staying at the hotel who went over and got us a key to the lounge where it's quiet, the only quiet place in the hotel. Good, solid connection, hopefully. We should be free of technical difficulties for the rest of the time that we're here.
Well,
and beyond that,
you're coming through loud and clear. And being that this is one of the Aramaic Fridays of 2014, I just wanted to remind you before you got rolling to look for Dale, see if he's on the board.
Yes, Jeanie is on the board, and I think she's already got Dale turned on. Dale, are you with us? Welcome to Aramaic Fridays. Whoops, she's just running back to the computer. Welcome, everybody. And Dale is with us, and he is turned on now. So how do you be, good sir? The man with the website, www.daleallenhoffman.com, if you want to find his materials. He's got some awesome stuff there. Welcome.
Thank you. I hope I sound okay. I'm on my cell phone. I'm not on my home phone. So. Can you hear me okay?
You're coming through pretty well. We can hear you, sir, yes.
Hello. Yes, so I'm on my way to some events in Delaware and New Jersey this weekend.
Awesome. Well, tell us about it. So if we've got any listeners up there, they'll be able to join you.
Well, tomorrow, Saturday, I'm in Wilmington, Delaware with, from 1 to 5 p.m., I'm offering something called a transformational concert. It's my friend Bob Sima and I, who's the most amazing new spiritual singer-songwriter in a really long time. He's an amazing guy who walks the talk. His music is incredible. It doesn't have any cheese to it. It's just very good. It's very conscious. And he and I inspire each other a lot. But what we're doing tomorrow in Wilmington, it's at the, I believe it's called the Center for Joyful Living in Wilmington. It's a Center for Spiritual Living. What we do is we combine the Aramaic teachings and Aramaic toning, prayer, silence, etc., along with Bob's music and some sing-alongs and some experiential practices. It's a really profound experience that he and I have done, I guess, all over the eastern U.S. about a half dozen times up to this point. It's been really incredible. And then the next day in New Jersey, in Haddon Township, New Jersey, Westmont, and South Jersey, I'm speaking at the Joyful Gathering Spiritual Center. I'm doing a Sunday service and then an afternoon workshop gathering. And that one's interesting to me because that place is only 20 minutes from where I grew up the first 10 years of my life. So a lot of like my family and I've got some friends coming. It's going to be sort of a homecoming on Sunday, which is going to be great. And then right after that on Sunday, I hit the road to get back down to Roanoke, Virginia that night because that's the southernmost, a southern enough point to be away from the ice storm that's going to hit Sunday. So, and then I'll be home the next day.
Awesome. So if somebody wants to attend those events, they go to your website to get the details, or is there a phone number, or what's the best way to do this?
Yes.
So www.dale, D-A-L-E, Allen, A-L-L-E-N, Hoffman, H-O-F-F-M-A-N. Double F, right?
Yes, H-O-F-F-M-A-N, yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Awesome. So what do you have on your mind today, sir?
Well, I've been really digging around a lot with other ancient languages, like laying Aramaic beside a lot of others. I'm really deep into my book, and what I'm really doing is, keeping my mind focused, keeping my goal clear, to not overcomplicate the first thing I put out there. So I'm keeping it simple, but I've been really struck digging in with all these different the different research I'm doing with guys like John McWhorter, who's a professor at Columbia University. He's a guy who knows more about language than probably almost anybody on the planet in terms of the history of human language and how we communicate through sounds, through gestures. What are the oldest known languages that we think we know of? Talks a lot about the mother tongue and what we actually do know about those ancient modes of communication versus what we think we know, and how people sort of draw lines and create sort of belief systems that aren't necessarily based on something that we have proof for. But it's been really amazing because I've been digging really deep into the characters in terms of how certain sounds and letters were originally written. And it's amazing because the second half of my book is going to go through every single letter in the Aramaic and Hebrew alphabets, and it's going to show some of the different styles of how those were written back to the earliest recorded letters that we know of, as well as what those sounds actually meant and what the letter shapes in some of those cases meant. And it's amazing because I'm looking at the letter mem, which is like an M in Aramaic and Hebrew, and what mem means is water. It means water or source. And it's amazing because the oldest known written form of that letter that we know of, it wrote almost like ripples of the ocean. The letter ayin, which has like an ah or an a sound, in Aramaic and Hebrew, it means eye, literally E-Y-E, like the eye on your face. And it's amazing because digging back in these old proto-synectic languages, we're talking back 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years, that letter was originally written as an eyeball, and I'm getting really lit up. The last week has been so incredible because I've been taking all these translations I've done over the past 2 decades, word translations, like word for word, and I've literally been going back over them with a fine-tooth comb, not only translating them word for word, but letter for letter or sound for sound. In other words, the meaning of each sound independently. And it's amazing because it lines up perfectly. You can't do that with English. You can't take the English letters and define each letter and then come up with letter meanings that mean what the word actually means today. But you can do that in Aramaic and Hebrew. And my hair has been standing straight up on end for much of the past 7 days. It's been an incredible journey, and I've been really excited to begin sharing this with other people as well. So there's a lot coming for me, a lot of new stuff, a lot of fresh, open perspectives, I guess you could say.
That's pretty awesome, and the brain cells you trigger for me with the symbol being mem and water is the work of Dr. Emoto, who's showing that water holds memory and reflects that memory in its structure. Wow. And recognizing that we're 98% water and we reflect memory in our structure. If you look at Emoto's work, is taking water that's totally trashed and garbage and polluted and toxic and simply putting words on it, freezing and slicing. For those who are new to the show, I know you're familiar with this information, but he slices them into laser thin crystals, and all of a sudden these beautiful forms come out, and the water's totally transformed with memory. And it certainly has a lot of implications for the fluids in our own structures and the fluids that we intake into our structures.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, it's amazing too, because now that you say that, like all of the meanings of a letter, they all sort of have a common thread that runs through them. Another meaning of the letter mem is the word source. It means expanse or the all. It means water, and it means source. And, of course, that brings me back to memory. Beautiful.
Cool. Awesome. Well, let's check in with Dr. Tim and see if he has anything to share or anything to ask you on the journey here.
Okay.
Hello, Dale.
Hi. It's great to hear your voice.
To be here. I was just thinking this week about how you were talking. Last week we had a caller who was asking about shbagh. And Michael has been changing up the way he talks about that a little bit to say, when you say forgiveness, think remove. And the theme that comes through, that's been coming through so often in my sessions this week, is not about how we have to create or find the love within us, but we have to remove what's less than love. And I just wondered if there's something you have to say about how shbagh refers or relates to that, the way of Course in Miracles talks about that, and Way of Mastery talks about that it's so important to look for and find everything that's less than love within us and cancel it, remove it, so that we can so easily see what's already there, and just what the ancient Aramaic might have to say about that.
You know, it's one of the words that I mentioned in the last couple of weeks was teshbukta. I think I mentioned it twice, which is that word glory, or for thine is the power and the glory at the end of the Lord's Prayer. You could say magnificence, and I say that word teshbukta. Again, I'll put the bass down for anybody who didn't hear the other two calls or even didn't remember. But that ta sound genders it feminine. What that means is glory is an experience. Glory is not something that is something that's like a tangible thing that you can somehow get. You can't get or give glory. Okay, it's a perception essentially. It's a state of being. It's an attitude. And the first sound in teshbukta is the tesh sound, which means like sparkling, shining, glimmering facets of a diamond or a prism, something that sets off like a sheen, or not necessarily a glow, but like a glimmering, shining, sheening kind of thing. And in the middle of that word teshbukta, glory, is the word shbuk, which means to remove the veils, to literally, like Michael said, to remove, to cancel, that literally you have no goal. You're not looking for glory. You're not trying to seek something in the present moment. But when we are fully open in this present moment, and if we have any goal, it's just to be present. It's to be full, 100% fully conscious, active, present love. When the veils are removed, that's when glory reveals itself. That's when you look around the room or around at the world, and it has that glimmer, that sheen, that shimmering essence like facets of a diamond. And it's not something that you necessarily see with your eye. It's an experience that you perceive as consciousness. And what I believe is that you're literally, what's happening is you're seeing yourself. You're seeing the light that you are within everything around you, whether it be trees or children or even buildings and roads. It really isn't so much about what you're seeing in it, although I'm sure it's much easier to see it in trees and children. But yeah, essentially in that ancient idea, it's that the removal of the veil or pulling anything off of the light, the bushel baskets off the light, that's when that natural essence, the magnificence, the glory, that presence, that shining, glowing essence of life itself shines through. And that doesn't happen when we're waiting for something in the moment. We're seeking to get something, some sort of end cause. It only happens when we're open and we're literally just fully present now. And that's when that shine or that glory reveals itself.
Are you telling us it's an inside job?
100%.
Again?
Yeah, again.
Cool. Awesome.
Delightful. Thank you.
Well, say it again.
I just said that's delightful. Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the things before we go to a caller that you triggered there too is, I can remember back, it's probably about 4 years ago when we met with an Aramaic community in Southern California, and we were talking about what we had discovered out of first century understanding about Rachma being a filter in the frontal lobes of the brain that keeps the whole organism on track with love and becomes the gateway into which human life enters. And when we asked them, especially their elders, what that meant, that word Rachma, they said that they didn't have a definition for it. The meaning had been lost, but their tradition told them that it was the most precious jewel. They were the words they used, the most precious jewel that you could have. And certainly, Teshbukta, certainly the removal of the veil leaves that particular filter fully intact and available, and it's certainly sparkling, and the perception comes from the inside and shines the light to the outside. It's not something that we find outside and gather. And, you know, when the mind is filled with goals, all the things that it wants to do, we're trapped in a world that really doesn't even exist except as a state of energy within us, and a state that's inferior to the truth of who we are. So it's pretty cool the way those two tie together.
Absolutely. I will say, too, that sort of from a scholarly perspective, that line in the Lord's Prayer, for thine is the power and the glory, pretty much everyone is in complete acceptance that it was added in the margins in Matthew, in the Gospel of Matthew, sometime late first, early second century in one of the early texts. Interesting thing, it wasn't originally there in the original Lord's Prayer. Some actually put it even later than that, further into the second century. So, but it's still a great line.
Cool. Well, we've got a couple of callers, and I think our first caller is Rex. Is that you, young man? Welcome.
It is beautiful, sir. How's everybody doing?
We're blessed and highly favored, rocking along.
Yes,
Lots of things happening in Costa Rica.
I wanted to say to Rex, I've got your email right at the top. It's like saved with a star, and I realize now that I haven't replied to it. So I did get the email you sent.
Awesome, thank you.
That was one thing I was going to ask you about. Yeah, I've been really deep in the last week. I've been so deep in writing that I sort of turned the rest of the world off in a way, because so much has been flowing through, so to speak.
Well, good job, and I am totally patient with that. I recognize that either you didn't get it or you had things that you were working on, and based on what you're sharing, I'm pleased that you're doing the work you're doing. It's awesome. I love hearing what you come up with. It's exciting for all of us, I think, to share at the level that we are. It's just, the word awesome just keeps resonating in my mind. It's wonderful. I had an experience yesterday that was something I wanted to share briefly. It was resonated in me by you were talking about Teshbukta. And I have been going through some very deep level healing, as Michael knows, and he's been supporting me, as has Dr. Tim and many other people in my world, which is awesome. I am really blessed that way. And, you know, some levels of denial and dissociated states surfacing. And I yesterday broke through certain levels of that, and there's more, obviously, but I broke through certain levels of it, and I had a memory of being an infant. I mean, even one of the younger memories I've been there before, and I've had experiences before that and vague memories, but this was really vivid. And I remember looking out at my parents, and what I saw and what I interpreted in them yesterday when I was having the experience as an adult, the memory, I saw shimmering light. Interpreted that I was seeing their energy fields, and it was less that they had bodies, and I was seeing shimmering light. And as soon as you started describing, you know, Teshbukta and the glory as an experience, and the Shbukta is the glory, and then you talked about the expression of light. I interpreted, all of a sudden it just resonated in me that that's what I was seeing. And because the word that came to mind, and I even shared it yesterday, was magnificence. And I was feeling it in my body, and I was seeing it in my environment. And then it was during those moments in time when I started to shut down my awareness of that. And it was pretty powerful healing that transpired yesterday.
You know, I was going to say, you've really hit it on the head, because in my translation of the Lord's Prayer, I translate shbagh as magnificence, and to me, that's magnify sense. Our senses are magnified in those moments, and we're able to perceive those deeper layers of actuality that we wouldn't necessarily see if we had something piled on top of our senses and we weren't fully present. And so magnificence is, to me, almost a perfect word for it if you break it down just in the English, magnify senses.
Thank you. I wrote that down as you were saying that. So that was essentially what I wanted to share. There was one other thing that I'm recalling real quick to see if I can do it very quickly. I had forgotten it, and I just recalled it right now. And I'm going to pull it up. I have the verse. It may take me a moment, maybe 30 seconds, so bear with me. That was given at the prison for what I had asked for a couple weeks ago. Oh, okay. Whoops. I apologize for, if you had something you wanted to share while I was looking, I'd love to hear it. I just love hearing you talk, Dale.
No, it's okay. Maybe Michael's got something.
Well, I just, hold the space that kind of sparkling experience is something that opens on new levels every day for everyone, and it's certainly the natural result of each of us doing our work. So it's awesome. Congratulations, Rex. That's pretty powerful, and certainly sharing it with our audience gives people a level, I think, of inspiration. When you look at, you've been doing this work for 30 years, and the gates keep opening, and I'll affirm for me that it just keeps opening and opening and opening, and where it stops, nobody knows, but it's pretty awesome.
That's so true. I mean, I was just going to say, I look back at who I was last week, and I wonder, wow, I thought I was conscious then, but everything's just expanding so quickly. It's been really beautiful. Sorry to interrupt you, Rex.
No need to apologize. It was perfect. I'm not finding it right now. I will, and if I'm able to search for it, I'll raise my hand back up. But thank you, and Michael and Jeanie both were very instrumental in. I don't know if you got my communications this morning, Mike. I know you've been busy, but I called, texted, and emailed a response to your last email last night, which was very, very good. And I definitely have been chuckling and smiling at my denial and my dissociated states, and willing to look at the next layer totally and completely. So,
Awesome.
I welcome it. And I really did appreciate your humor, and I honestly, it was happening. I woke up this morning chuckling. Actually, the denial is so interesting once I embrace it.
It is, and to me, that's one of the reasons why recognizing, when they say to Yeshua, how do you tell where somebody's at? And he says, you got to look at your fruit. If you look at what you believe about yourself, it doesn't work. You got to look at your fruit. What's the fruit? And the best signal to tell us when we're off track, and we share this with everybody, and I say it over and over again for myself as well, is that if hostility appears in my mind, then I don't know the truth. I can't get out of my own dilemma, and that's where support and assistance is needed, and being here for each other is really a big, big key in the process. Cool. Well, anything else, Jeanie? We got another caller there?
Well, that was
Jeanie's
it.
got another hand up. So.
Yep, and I appreciate giving me the time to share, and if I am able to come up with that blessed verse in the Quran, I'll put my hand back up and hopefully can ask you, Dale. I couldn't find it while we were talking. I want to hold the program up. So I'll look forward to your response, and we're very excited about sponsoring you and bringing you into Lansing in our area.
Beautiful.
Okay, brother. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Cool. So Jeanie's got two more callers for us. Let's say hello to area code 602. 602, you are on the air. Give us a name. Where are you calling from?
My name is Steve. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona.
Hey, Steve, welcome. Glad you're here. How can we support you?
Well, you just mentioned something that I think kind of sums up my situation. I'm really struggling with a forgiveness issue, in particular with my father. And you just said if hostility appears in the mind, something along the lines, and we kind of don't know what questions to ask. And I feel like I'm kind of in that situation right now. I'm doing worksheets. I'm doing Ho'oponopono, and I'm still having a lot of triggers and hostile thoughts. And I realize this is all about self-hatred. I'm just wondering, is there something else I should be doing? But why is this so difficult?
Well, I'm sure that you're the only one that listens to the show or has been on the show that has been a male with a challenge with his dad. I put a big cough in there. And so I guarantee that if you were to be able to sit down and have a peaceful conversation with your dad, he'd tell you all the stuff that went on with his dad and all the hostilities and all the rages and all the attacks and all of that. And if you were to sit with your grandfather, you'd hear about it and you'd hear about it. And when it comes to these kinds of issues, if you listen to Yeshua, he says, not that you forgive 7 times 70. When I think it was Peter that asked, how many of these worksheets do we have to do anyway? Is 7 enough? And the response in Aramaic was 77 times 70, which literally means an infinite number of times. Ultimately, if you choose to really handle this issue, you're going to get to the point in your work where you will open your genetics and you will access the memories of your father and his father and his father and his father, all the way back to where the first conflict began. And that's a process that doesn't happen overnight. That's a process that takes a tremendous level of vitality to go through. And as you build your vitality and as you do your work, if we were in an intensive, I would be turning to the board and writing on the board all of the above, every tool that we teach. But I'll ask the question, have you done worksheets on self-hatred with yourself as number 1A and I hate myself?
I don't believe I have. I haven't found those. That sounds like a good idea. I'm aware of... Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Well, go ahead. I was just going to say that as you become aware, let yourself be aware of the words that come out of your mouth. You'll always answer your own questions. And as you started to ask the question, you instantly went to, and I know it's all about self-hatred. So if it's about self-hatred, which if you really got into your dad's psyche, you'll probably find the same thing, and maybe mom's too. It's a tradition in our culture. I'm no good, I'm bad, I'm wrong, I'm not good enough, I'm evil, I'm, all the things the church told me, I'm a sinner. And maybe if I've never been to church, it's all the things that my parents were told in church and their parents that lead to the degradation of the truth of who we are. And that identity is literally a false set of frequencies held in brain cells that coagulate as a picture of who we think we are. And it is going to take the chipping away piece by piece by piece of that self-hatred, of that self-image, to allow that to collapse and come to the point where I am totally, completely flooded with the presence of my human life. And then I'm going to realize that my whole conversation about Dad has nothing to do with it. Okay. That it's, again, all an inside job. There are states that I need to restore in me that Dad does me the favor of doing behaviors that show them to me. And, it's kind of like the good news and the bad news. The good news or the bad news is it always comes back to me. Am I in frustration? My next piece of work. Am I in anger? My next piece of work. Am I in upset of some kind? My next piece of work. Well, but Michael, look what they did. Yeah, whatever they did, that's my next piece of work if it brings up something less than love in me, because I'm the one who doesn't have the condition of Rahma. I'm the one who doesn't have the condition of my human life incarnated into my human form. And in order to incarnate that, I have to displace everything that's unlike that. And when my mind comes up, I come from generations and generations and generations, we all do, of deniers, that they always talked about somebody else. And so the good news is it always comes back to me, and I can change it. There's a great line in the Course in Miracles that says, you think the problem's outside of you. If it was, you'd really be in trouble. But it's not, and it's all resolvable, and it's a process, and you just have to step by step go through your process.
Okay, so
you're right on track.
So I'm on track. It's just a matter of continuing with the work and dealing with the feelings as they come up. Precisely. Forgiving anything and everything that you're capable of experiencing that's less than love. And, there's a little test that we've injected into this work. It's a really difficult intellectual piece to grasp, but there's a test that we've set up to determine whether or not something you're feeling is yours or not. And the test goes like this. Are you feeling it? Are you feeling it? If you're feeling it, guess who it belongs to? It's not about dad. It's not about mom. It's not about girlfriend. It's not about who I look at in the mirror. It's about the content of my physiology. And when I apply forgiveness to that piece of content, then I dissolve as much of that content as I am vitally capable of dissolving. We do a thing with a vitality meter. It goes from 1 to 10. If I'm at a level 5 vitality and I've got a level 7 toxicity around self-hatred, I'm not going to resolve that level 7 toxicity of self-hatred until I get beyond a level 7.5 in vitality. And that might take me 2 days. It might take me 2 years. It might take me 10 years to get to do the things that it takes to get to that level of vitality so that I can access and throw that off. The body-mind unit has its own built-in suppress mechanism. It will not allow you to access that which you don't have the vitality to handle, because to access it literally could kill you. And it won't allow you, your structure won't allow you to do that to yourself. That makes a lot of sense.
So you do your work. And, in the ancient scriptures, they said strength to strength. Here a little, there a little.
So is this just about
and then it
recognizing...
says,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Is this about recognizing these things as illusions? Or, I mean, I guess I'm curious about the source.
It is, but these illusions are real. They are my reality. The root of the word illusion in Aramaic, and maybe Dale could expand on this a little bit, the root of the word illusion is not something that doesn't exist as we've been taught in this culture. The root of the word illusion is measured. If I measure rage into my structure, then my illusion is going to be based in rage. And it doesn't mean it's something that doesn't exist. It's a very real reality in my mind and in my physiology. What I've measured in is measured back out to me. As you measure, it will be measured onto you. As you sow, you reap. There are many ways that was said. And so what I put in the structure is going to, it's like a lemon. If you squeeze a lemon, what do you get out of it? You get lemon juice. If you squeeze a human being, if you put a human being in a situation, or they put themselves in a situation where the stress is up and the chips are down, whatever's in there is going to come out. If you don't like what's coming out, if you don't like your fruit, you can't talk about somebody else as the cause of it. You got to stop. And again, this is the good news and the bad news. You got to come back and go, oh, here I am. I'm being squeezed. My father did this terrible thing, and I'm squeezed, and what's coming out of me is rage, guilt, grief, self-hatred, sadness, fear, anger, abandonment. They're all the issues that go along with that. And when the stress is up and the chips are down, I'm the cause of the stress because I'm the one who holds the goal for Dad to be different. If Dad's in a fit of rage and I want him to hold me and love me, that's a goal that's going to bring forward all of my rage that came from my genetics with Dad and my environmental experiences with Dad. When I cancel and collapse that goal within myself, which is the core of the forgiveness process, shbagh, then all of a sudden what's being squeezed up out of me by that goal, I now have direct access to, and when I bring it forward in the presence of love, it falls apart and dissolves. And I'm going to do that process as many times as I need to. Dale, do you have any thoughts to offer on that word measure? As you measured, it will be measured unto you, and illusion from the Aramaic?
Well, I will say this. Since I'm in the car, I don't have a lexicon or a Bible in front of me at the moment, so I could look into the measure and measured unto you phrase. But the primary word for illusion is actually that word that was also translated as bushel basket. And that's that word satah, which does mean to measure, to slide, to fall, or to fragment something away from its source. What that means is that you're taking sort of like one little teeny tiny piece of the whole and looking at that as if that's the truth of who you are, that's the truth of the situation, of the present moment, whatever it may be. And it's funny that, he said, if I gave you a light or a lamp or a candle, would you hide that below a bushel? One of the things I often say in my teachings is I tell people what happens if you put a bushel or a basket on top of a candle. What happens? If people go, well, it starts to burn. And I'm like, what happens when it starts to burn? They're like, well, it starts to stink. And I'm like, it does, doesn't it? And I'm like, also on top of that, imagine, let's just put it this way, not saying that the human mind does this, although it does exactly this. Let's just say that your perception of that bushel basket is not outside of you. It's actually, in fact, inside of you. And what that bushel basket is the veil. It's the ego. It's the ape. It's the hypocrite. It's what Eckhart Tolle calls the pain body. It's that part of you that needs a voice, that we've been denying, suppressing, resisting, and repressing for so long that it's almost like it doesn't have a voice anymore. And if you have, let's just say, a child, and that child wants to speak up, and someone's constantly barking, telling that kid, shut up, eventually the kid's going to stop speaking, and then everything is going to start recirculating back into itself, and it's going to start to stink, and the kid's going to start to develop all kinds of developmental issues, psychological issues, etc. But with that bushel basket on the lamp, when you do, what's happened is Steve has been doing the work, and what happens is as soon as you go in, it's like somebody cranks the volume knob up and it's never going to be more than you can handle in any moment. That's something that Michael absolutely hit on the head. But when you start doing the work, all of a sudden all these things that weren't within your frame of reference, or should I say your realm of perception in the past, now all of a sudden you start recognizing them. Guess what? They've been there the whole time, just all of a sudden now you see them, and at times it may feel somehow overwhelming if you're not putting the tools to work, so to speak. But when you're relating, when you don't realize that the bushel basket that's on top of your own personal candle, your own flame, your own eternal light, when you don't realize that you've associated yourself to be your ego, that your pain body, the mask or the veil that we wear as a human being, when that comes and the light starts intensifying, we start feeling like we are dying. We start feeling like our life is falling apart. When in truth, it's not our life that's falling apart. It's the illusion. It's what Paramahansa Yogananda calls the pseudo-soul. And in a way, yes, it's true recognizing it as an illusion, but there's a catch in that in much New Age stuff, especially a lot of the stuff that uses the word forgiveness, people think, oh, well, it's all just an illusion, so they think, by recognizing it as an illusion, then you've won the game. But unfortunately, what that's doing is, Michael's analogy is perfect, saying, okay, well, it's all just an illusion, and it is part of the process. It's kind of like you're on the 40th floor of a building, and there's a fire raging a couple of floors down, and the smoke alarm starts going off, the fire alarm, and you just cut the wire to the fire alarm and say, well, that's just an alarm. It really doesn't have anything to do with the fire itself, so I'm just going to cut this, and I'm going to go back to what I was doing, and never mind. Unfortunately, you're going to be consumed by it. So exactly what you're doing is exactly what you should be doing, putting the pen to the paper, doing the worksheets, being open, keeping your breath moving, canceling the goal, doing the absolute true forgiveness work. And then what I'll say is the more you do it, it gets a little easier. I don't know if easier is the word, but the load gets a little lighter, and it gets a little lighter, and it gets a little lighter, and it becomes more natural and more natural and more natural. And then eventually you've pulled so many veils off of that light that your light is really shining through. And then you can go through the process in real time right there in front of someone, and they don't know that you're, full-time right now in the present moment going through the forgiveness process. But it all begins by sort of flexing the muscle, having the willingness and doing it over and over and over and over and over. And I will say, if you're in a human body, you're going to be continuing to do it over and over and over and over. That's not a threat to me. I mean, that's the beauty, is that the power is in your hands. You're in a perfect place.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, the idea here is to let go of the goals and expectations you have of others and allow them to be who they are, without judging them, because, and that's what releases the pain, because pain comes from the expectations and the goals. So if you don't have those, then, and you're kind of loving and allowing them to be who they are, then you don't run into that pain that comes from not having your expectations met. So it's kind of like we set ourselves up.
I would say Michael could probably answer this beautifully succinctly.
Yeah.
Because
I have some thoughts.
I would say that's part of it, but that's not the whole. That's not quite the whole thing. So.
Okay.
So I defer to Michael.
Actually, the first thing I would address, the first thing I would suggest is that you delete the word expectations from the conversation. Goals and expectations are two different things. The mind is not driven by expectations any more than it's driven by intentions. Expectations and intentions share an attribute with a shadow, and that is a shadow cannot carry a stone. Expectations and cannot touch behavior, but it is goals that drive the system. Your pain does not come from the unsatisfied goal that you hold. And it's not about, and doesn't have anything to do with letting them be who they are. That's kind of an ego-centered idea. Well, I'll be big enough to let them be who they are. They are who they are. And we need to begin to let go of thinking that, people sit around in the night to figure out how they can disturb and distort and, cause us pain. It's all an inside job. The thing about a goal is that your goal for them recruits inside of you the content you have.
Okay.
That is the root of your pain. And when you know what to do with the goal, that is, if you're in pain, you cancel the goal. By doing that, it collapses the end result of what has been recruited. That fills the mind with the perception that it's about somebody else. So when you cancel the goal, that collapses, and at the same time, that gives you an opening, a direct pathway into the dissociated content that is the root of your pain. When you allow that pathway to open and then turn it over to Ruka, you open that dissociated content. And now, instead of seeing the dissociated content projected into your brain's image of someone else, you have direct access to it. You turn it over to the super processor, and whatever you're willing to have exposed to love automatically, instantly begins to dissolve. The problem is that most people live trapped in Satan. And in the Aramaic, Satan is the resistor, one who misleads. When somebody's in their hostility and fear, the first thing they do is talk about, the average person is talk about somebody else and how it's their fault that they're experiencing what they're experiencing. And that we call denial. Our working definition of denial is, I talk about you or them as though they're the cause of what's happening in me. And that's what causes me to dissociate from the content that I want to be finished with. By canceling the goal, I get to access directly what I need to heal, and because the step before canceling the goal I have focused on and brought forward the active presence of love, when those two things meet, the generational dissociated content that keeps us unconscious begins its dissolution. It is the canceling of the goal that gives me access to that content that I've dissociated from. And I can only process what I've got the vitality to process. So any conversation about anybody or anything else is all denial.
So whenever
this
I'm
person,
okay. And so what all
including, by the way, hold on for a second, including your own non-being self.
Okay.
I don't. The structure, the culture has structured us with, for instance, guilt. And so when I start talking about how I'm so guilty and I'm so bad and I'm so wrong, which many religions think is something wonderful for you to do, when you start that conversation, you're now back in dissociation. You're blaming the non-being self. And in Aramaic, you are the neighbor to your own non-being self. And the requirement of the law is that you keep the condition of love, the condition of Rahma, active in your mind. And that's what brings dissolution to literally generations and generations and generations of content. Otherwise, what that content will do, sitting inside of you, is radiate out a literal high-energy wave that will resonate or draw somebody to you to play that out with you. If when they are drawn to you and they do the behavior that they do as a result of what you've drawn them in for, and you talk about them, we're right back in the dissociated state. And that's where, as I said earlier, the good news and the bad news, it's all about me. It always comes back to me.
Okay. And if I'm understanding you correctly, the disassociated state is actually the source of all of our pain. That's where it originates from. Or am I wrong about that?
We want to make a distinction. We want to make a bit of a distinction in the word. It's not the disassociated state. It's the dissociated state. It's a different word. So when I deny, I dissociate from content. It is the dissociated content that is the cause of my pain. It is forgiveness that gives me access to my dissociated content. The willingness when I'm in pain and I see that the fruit of my physiology, my emotions, my mind is painful, my willingness to stop looking, thinking, talking about anybody else and simply collapse my projection and going inside to that dissociated content is what gives me the opportunity to heal.
And so does it reveal itself to you over time then? Is that kind of the process of how it works?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If you, that step 3B in the worksheet where I've canceled my goal, which means I now collapse my projection, have access directly to what I need to deal with, then the next step is I invite Ruka, and maybe we'll get Dale to talk a little bit about Ruka Dakudsha. I invite that elemental force that, when invited into activity, undoes the effects of my errors and teaches me the truth to go to work in me. I realized that in 45 years of doing this work, sometimes I thought I was pretty smart because I figured it out. And then I recognized that one of the pseudo-solutions of the non-being mind is, if I could just figure this out. You can't figure it out. You can forgive it, and she will teach you. And, oh, yes, you will be shown in spades, step by step by step by step. If the ears are there to hear it, if I have the willingness to hear. And, of course, the beauty of pain is that it makes our ears grow.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's right. It's an awesome process when you get into it.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr.
So, Dale,
Ryce.
do you have anything to share about Ruka Dakudsha? Oh, I'm delighted. We're glad to be here and to be of support because, of course, we're teaching what we need to learn. Are you with us, Dale? Did we lose Dale, Jeanie? Yes. Oh, we've lost Dale. Okay. Well, then, we appreciate you calling. Oh, here he is. He's back.
Hello? Hello.
So, Dale, I was just asking. Hey there.
I lost the signal and I had to call back in, but you were asking about Rucha de Kudsha. You know,
just give us some insight from what you've been learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, and this is something, one of the things that to me is so beautiful is Rucha, what we call the Holy Ghost, Holy Spirit, you know, in the King James sense. Rucha in the first century was known as she, feminine, the feminine force that undoes the effects and the errors of our ways of thinking and being and perceiving. And that word Rucha, of course, translated as spirit in Latin, what that word Rucha in Aramaic means is more accurately breath. And one thing that's really important that modern Christians just really have never even, not only have they never, do they probably not understand, but they've never actually even been told, because most of the people teaching them stuff don't really know anything about what was originally there in the actual Jesus teachings. They just know the English perspective, but or Greek. That word that was translated as spirit in the first century, breath and spirit were not two separate things, two separate entities. They hadn't changed, you know, in other words, what you were feeling as you breathe through your lungs, that was breath. What you feel as you breathe through your lungs was spirit. It was the same thing, and it was the word Rucha. So that's the Rucha part of Rucha de Kudsha, Holy Spirit. And that Kudsha sound, which is Kadosh in Hebrew or Aramaic, what that means open, empty, spacious, and open, allowing. And it means also whole or all-embracing. So if you look at that word in Aramaic, it's actually the all-embracing breath of what? Of the one. The all-embracing feminine breath of what we would call God or Allah in Aramaic, the one absolute only being. The all-embracing breath of truth is one of the things of pure truth that I love to say. And when we breathe ourselves, we activate her. We activate that, what Michael calls the super processor. We activate Rucha, that healing force that's within us that literally will dissolve anything that's brought into her womb. But the main thing we have to do is, number one, we've got to take it to her, or we have to open our hands so that she can take it from us. And it's one of those things that is totally and completely lost in a lot of almost all modern Christian teachings. Is it's not a male spirit. It's actually, in fact, that feminine, open presence, and we activate her, that all-embracing breath of God, Rucha de Kudsha, by our own willingness and our own conscious breath, by us breathing. And we'll notice all the time when something's up, we stop breathing. It's always the mechanism. And so, again, I'll say it in every single show forever that I do with Michael. I'm always so grateful, and I have such immense gratitude and honor for knowing that I started with the true forgiveness work, with my Aramaic work, rather than in a book or from some other sort of far-fetched sort of vision, and there's quite a few of them out there about Aramaic. It all comes down to the present moment and, like I said earlier, putting the pen to the paper and actually doing it. And then when you do it, it looks like all of a sudden everything's falling apart. But in fact, what's happening is everything's finally allowed to have a voice. And eventually you do enough and you do enough, and it gets a little less intense and a little less intense and a little less intense. And I think it's just a beautiful process to expand and expand and awaken and awaken and awaken.
Gotcha. Well, I think I understand. I have a lot of work to do.
I would also
Hey,
say,
welcome
too,
to the game.
I was going to say, as soon as you're able to, if you've got Michael's Why Again DVD, watch it, whether it's tonight or tomorrow. Just watch it all the way through, and then watch it again, and then watch it again. It's not really about the understanding. But that's part of it, but it's about, it gets in on a different level, and it's about that realization. It's about the difference, like Michael says, about A Course in Miracles. Don't study the course, practice forgiveness. Just keep doing what you're doing, because you're in a beautiful place. Just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it.
Okay. Well, you know what? I will watch that when I get off of the call. Thank you, Dale. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Dr. Ryce. I appreciate your help.
Awesome. Glad to be on the team. Keep us posted on how it goes. And we've got a 602 area code. 602, you're with, or pardon me, 607. That was Steve at 602, and we've got 607. Give us a name and where you're calling from.
Well, this is Richard from Ithaca.
Hey there, good sir. How do you be?
I'm doing well, blessed and highly favored.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited about our last conversation where you shared that you're going to start growing some food for Heartland on that patch of land. That'll be awesome to be able to have that available. So how can we support you today, Richard?
Well, I just wanted to comment when you were talking to the gentleman who was just on about dissociation. It sort of clicked for me, or at least I heard it this way. It might just be another way of getting it across to him. You know, when we're in a state of love, that's when we're in a state of love. But when we end up being in, something triggers us and we get into anything less than love state, that's when we become dissociated, because we dissociated from our source, which is love. Does that make sense?
Well, and we want to take it, yes, the primary error that we make is we make something more important than being connected to love. But where I'm using that word dissociated is that now the content that creates the block, I hide from myself by talking about someone else as the cause. So when I say you made me angry, when I focus on and just have the thoughts, that situation really upset me, then I've hidden the root of my upset from myself. That's the dissociation that I'm talking about. And that content is what blocks my connection to source. When I forgive that content, then I'm fully restored to connection with source. And not only am I tied into the light of the world, but as Yeshua said, I become the light of the world.
Thank you. That was just
and you'll notice there are a lot of people who want you to buy an identity other than being the light of the world. And they'll tell you that, in essence, what they're saying is, oh, ignore that thing that you're the light of the world. You're not the light of the world. You're a damn S word. And, you're not. You've done it. We've all done it. But we are ultimately the light of the world when we're willing to face our bushel baskets.
Great. That's just another great summary of what you just said. Thank you very much.
Absolutely delighted. And Dale, we appreciate you being with us today. Best with your events. If you want to join Dale up in the Northeast for the events, the 2 events he's doing this weekend, you can go to www.daleallenhoffman.com and you can tap into exactly what he's doing, get a flyer on it, and connect with his events. And Jeanie, you had something to share? Oh, and Jeanie said our schedule is changing fast. We've added several events in Las Vegas. We've got an intensive we're working on out there. We're heading up into the Northeast when we leave Costa Rica. We've added a couple of free Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshops here, as well as our intensive. So come and play with us in Costa Rica. And if you're in Costa Rica, please join us. In the meantime, we invite you to give the world the best possible gift you could give, and that is have the best